Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is our bonus episode where we are going to be talking about the 2026 Sundance Film Festival. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. Except for, as we said, this week, we are talking about the Sundance Film Festival for the year 2026. Stephen and I, we caught the online version of the festival, so the last 4 days of the festival, where we were able to catch as many films as we could fit in those last 4 days of the festival. And we are coming together to talk to you about a handful of those films that we saw. Stephen, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. A little tired from the weekend. But
I was shocked at how well I slept on Sunday night. Like when I no longer had movies left to watch, I was just knocked out cold. It is pretty crazy how much it takes out of you, even compared to like an in-person film festival, where in an in-person film festival, we can watch like 4 or 5 movies a day and we feel dead by the end. Watching like 7+ movies a day is a whole different type of mental exhaustion.
Yeah. But to be fair, without having to actually like go to the theater and wait in line and being able to just, as soon as the credits roll, run to a bathroom that has no line and being able to like eat during the movie and not have to worry about anything and have just everything at the tip of your fingers at all times. It does make it more manageable than
100%. I think the thing is, it makes it more manageable, meaning you literally can watch more movies and you can handle the workload without like physically exhausting yourself. And so what's left is just your brain rebelling from how many movies it has seen back to back. And that is a limit that is almost impossible to hit in a physical film festival.
That is true.
Because there's just time and space don't work that way. Like your body gives out first.
Yeah,
so
100%.
the brain tired is something that only Sundance knows how to do to me.
Yeah, and I think too, like when we go to the in-person festivals, there'll be times where like maybe 2 days in a row we watch films that are thematically similar, and we kind of think that, oh, it's interesting that these two films covered this one subject. And when you watch like 7 to 9 films in one day, and you're like, oh, it's weird that like 4 of these films all dealt with the same subject matter. It does a different calculus in your head, and it definitely makes you feel differently about the way you're consuming those films. And when you can literally hit play on the next film 3 seconds into the credits, you're kind of evaluating those films on a different level than you would be if you had to at least walk and maybe talk a little bit about that film before you started the next one.
Definitely. And this is where I have to admit, so right before recording, you were talking about the Q&As that happen. They air basically right after the movie ends. I did not even notice that they had those this year until like my last movie on Sunday, because I never let it play that long. Yeah. The moment I hit the credits, I was on to the next movie. It was very, very back to back to back for me.
Yeah, the only Q&As that I listened to or partially listened to, and I say that specifically, is if I needed to use the restroom or make food between films.
Yep.
Because like I'm not going to stop it while I go do those things. So I would just let it run while I went and did those things. I'd let it run while I went and run.
Yeah, smart. I did occasionally there's a little like intro pre-reel that for the first 3 minutes at least is just like playing music. It's just like a waiting room, and then it goes into like some ads and the land acknowledgement and a little preview from the directors.
Yeah.
But that intro 3 minutes, that was my version of the Q&A. Like sometimes I would hit play and then I would run and use the bathroom or something, because somehow I felt like I was making progress by letting that pre-reel play forward instead of just skipping ahead. I don't know. The idea of productivity where you start gaming the numbers or whatever, it does get a little wonky when it comes to these virtual film festivals.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Steven, I had everything lined out perfectly going into the fest. Everything was set up. I had English language film, non-English language film queued up for all 4 days, ready to go. And then as soon as I started min-maxing, that entire schedule went out the door when I'd be like, okay, hold on a second. I can do this. I can shove another 90-minute here, and then I can do this. And I just threw everything out and started just wildly messing with the schedule and then moving things between days. And then suddenly fiance was like out the door and been like, okay, now I'm just going to shove something else here. Okay, I'm going to go do this here. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It was an intense few days. So,
and I have a very niche rant, which is I feel like last year there were a lot of movies that were 90 minutes, some even 80 something, one or two even 70 something. This year, I don't know if it's me, but I felt like 100 something was much more the norm. And that like extra 10 or 15 minutes really adds up when you're trying to pipeline these movies back to back. Like so many movies in competition, at least this year, were like 105, 107, 104. And I miss the days of 90, 91, 92. It really adds up when you're trying to do 7 movies a day.
I feel like there was a good number in the 90 range, but I feel like you also dipped into some of the docs that I avoided. So it's possible that might have thrown your numbers off a little bit.
I feel we can get into it too. I feel like you saw more of the next movies than I did, and those seem like they were on the shorter side, but we can figure it out. I was not a completist for any one category.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're already kind of getting into it, but before we get into the films themselves, let's talk a little bit about just this year's overall thoughts, what you thought about the festival, what you thought about the presentation of the films, how you watched them specifically, and just kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah. I thought this year's festival was fine. It was solid. If I stack it up against last year, I think last year probably had more movies that I watched and thought, wow, that might be the sort of thing I will be talking about at the end of the year. This year, I really wonder if the twin list situation has rippled into having fewer people be willing to put their movie in the dramatic competition because they don't want to be forced to screen it online because they're afraid of it going the way of Dylan O'Brien's sex scene, and leaking. Because this year there were, I mean, it was still an interesting range of movies, but it felt like the gap between what people were talking about who went to the festival and the gap like between that and the slate that I had access to was pretty wide. But still, I thought it was a good, interesting crop of movies. I would say there were actually fewer movies I strongly disliked than in most years. I think most everything I was at least 2.5 to 3 stars worth. I was like, okay, this has something to recommend it. It was rare that I actually felt very annoyed at movies, though we'll get to a couple of those. And yeah, I did. I think every single one I did on an Apple TV this year. The app, it just works. It continues to be the best virtual festival by quite a bit in terms of how kind of seamless it is. Even though I feel like they intentionally put a timeout after maybe 3 hours where the stream would pause and I would have to go back and then go forward again. I started to notice that trend on multiple Apple TVs throughout the 4 days. Like it would just hang in the middle of movie number 2. And the only thing I could do is hit the back button and then hit the resume button and then it would start working again.
Interesting. I only had a problem with the Apple, because I also watched exclusively on Apple TV. I only had a problem on Sunday, which was the day I only watched 3 things. And I only had the problem on like the 3rd film that I watched, where it just randomly stopped. And I was like, oh, it's probably just buffering. Maybe the wind blew too hard or something. Right. And no,
it'll never finish
buffering.
It
never. You had to literally just leave and come back, and then it would start again, which was a bummer. So yeah, that's a bummer that you had so many problems with it. Because the Apple TV presentation is freaking great. 4K presentation, smooth as hell. The only problem I had is like literally the night before, I had a bunch of stuff going on. It was late. I was like, I need to get to sleep because I'm going to get up in the morning to start watching this stuff. I went over, clicked the test my tech shit. It was like, this is unavailable to you. And I was like, what do you mean it's unavailable to me? I don't like any of that. So I was quite worried the night before the festival that something was wrong with my account and my all-you-can-eat pass was going to be all you can dream about eating. But in the morning, everything came online and it worked fine. And the tech worked out. Everything was great. Streams were perfect.
I'm glad I was ill prepared because I did no prep at all. Like I didn't even check the night before to see if the Apple TV app needed to be changed or updated or anything. I just, Thursday after work, I was like, okay, time to watch movies. And I just sat down and everything worked. So I think I would have had a mini heart attack if I tried the night before and realized that it wasn't working yet.
This is how bad my mini heart attack was. I was like resetting stuff so bad that I reset something on my Apple TV that somehow reset my projector in a way that turned on motion smoothing. So I watched the first film with motion smoothing on because
God.
I didn't want to bring up a menu and mess with the stream that was working. So, so I watched the first film and I was like, huh, this looks kind of shitty. And then I like partway, like as soon as that film stopped, I was like, let me go in. I was like, who turned this back on? I was like, oh, when I reset the Apple TV last night, it must have reset my projector somehow. It was like a whole thing. And then, but everything was perfect after that. Everything was great. So,
wow.
But yeah, so my thoughts on the festival as a whole, I think I feel about having seen everything that I watched a little bit like how I felt queuing up all the things I was intending to watch, which is, yeah, there was nothing that kind of stood out as like, oh my God, I really have to see this one thing. If I miss this thing, I'm going to be really, really sad. But as a whole, I kind of felt that everything was pretty good. Like this was very traditionally Sundance. Like everything was kind of like, yeah, that was a very Sundancey movie. I kind of enjoyed that. You know, like everything kind of was at exactly that kind of level. So as a whole, kind of really enjoyed my watching experience. Mostly, when we get to talking about our lowlights, it's going to be less a thing about, oh, I really hated this film, and more a thing about like either the gulf between what I expected and what I got was far enough apart that it stands out to me, or this film just didn't do as much as I would expect with what the premise is giving me, that it kind of let me down a little bit, like that kind of thing. But overall, kind of, I watched enough things that I'm very, very surprised that I walked away from most films going like, yeah.
Yeah, that's unlike you, actually. Usually you're the one after one of these that has like a harder time finding a bunch of things that you liked.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll add one more way that movies tended to fail for me, which is I turn it on and within 5 minutes I realize my brain is way too tired for whatever the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, that I can see how that would happen for a number of things.
Yep.
I can't wait to find out which one that happened the most for. All right. So you ready to do this, Steven?
Yeah, let's do it. So I think the plan is we'll just alternate back and forth, talk about a movie. It can either be a highlight or a low light, and then obviously the other person chime in if they also saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should keep a hard separation. Start with the highlights, and then we can then we can bounce a little. I don't think we should like start talking about a film and then surprise, this is a low light.
Yeah, I don't know.
This movie is about this, and it's about this, and it sounds great, but this movie sucked.
Don't you think that would be fun, though? Like, surprising you, you're all amped up thinking that I'm going to praise something, then I'm like, and I hated it.
Yeah, I mean...
But no, we can separate. We can separate. Yeah. We can start with highlights.
All right. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I will start with a movie that is a highlight for me that I'm going to call a highlight specifically because I think it wasn't a highlight for a lot of people, and I would not be surprised if it was not a highlight for you. And that is a movie called Carousel by Rachel Lambert. This is a movie starring Chris Pine, Jenny Slate, and Abby Ryder Forston, who I really loved from Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it's directed by the person who made Sometimes I Think About Dying, which is a movie that I really loved from a couple of years ago. And Sometimes I Think About Dying was basically a portrait of intense social anxiety. It was like a very muted romance between two people, one of whom, Daisy Ridley, just doesn't really know how to connect with other people. So the movie was very much kind of quiet and tender, but tender in this way where you're like hoping she'll come out of her shell and dare to say the thing, dare to reach out and talk to the person that she has a crush on. You know, it was a very sweet look at anxiety. The Carousel, I feel like, is also a look at anxiety, but a much more like interesting, kind of difficult one. Basically, Chris Pine plays a doctor who seems very friendly, kind, sweet, you know, very like Dwayne Johnson in The Smashing Machine. Like, you meet him and you're like, gosh, this guy is such a sweetheart. He's recently divorced. He has a daughter who is taking debate classes. He wants the best for her, and you just want him to fall in love with Jenny Slate. And then as the movie develops, there's like weirdness, there's tension, there's these like moments of anger that he doesn't know what to do with. There's this kind of overriding sense of dread or something that's about to bubble over or something that isn't quite right. His daughter also has this kind of like tension and dread, and Jenny Slate doesn't always know how to talk to him. And this movie is very much like living in that discomfort of people who have not really processed their feelings and they don't have an outlet for it. And for lack of an outlet, they might do something shitty or inexplicable or reckless in their own life. And I thought this movie just had that. It has a centerpiece of an argument in a kitchen that I thought was just like really, really, really great. Like basically justified the whole movie just for that. And it also has a few other moments, including an ending, that really just get at this idea of like the channeling the heart inside and how like hard it is to open yourself up to someone else. And I don't know, it feels like most people did not vibe with this movie, judging by critics or Letterboxd. But for me, I was really pretty, if not blown away, I at least felt like, wow, this is a very coherent, interesting statement. And I think Rachel Lambert totally executed on what she wanted to do. And for me, at least, I was here for it. Were you among the people who disliked Carousel, or did you also find something to vibe with?
So dislike is definitely not the word I would use at all for this. I was pretty excited for this. This is what I set as my opening film for the festival. This is the first thing that I watched.
Same.
And I think for me, like this film perfectly encapsulates how I feel about a number of films from this festival, where this film has scenes that strike at emotional truths that it perfectly nails, like that dinner, that kitchen table scene that you're talking about. There are things where it's like, if I look at this film from like a bird's eye view, I don't think it's perfectly doing everything it's trying to do. But then there are moments where I'm like, okay, like you said, there's a scene that justifies the film's existence. I agree that scene justifies the attempt to make this movie. I don't know if the scene makes the rest of the film 100% worth it, but that scene justifies I go, yes, I know why you wanted to make this movie. For me, it doesn't necessarily make the rest of the journey pan out, but I go, yes, the emotional truth of this is so real that I'm like, I get it. So it's like, for me, it kind of, when I looked at everyone involved, I got excited for the film and I wanted to see it and I wanted more from it. And like,
you want Landline. This is not doing that.
Well, there's so much extra stuff with like the daughter character and everything she has going on. And like, there's just a lot of different things this film is trying to do it. And for me, it was a little too much, but then there were so many things that it does right that I'm like, I want to love you so much, film.
Yeah.
And you're just not quite there, but also I'm with you for this ride and I enjoyed my time with you, but I just can't heart you.
Isn't that exactly how characters feel about each other?
that is, yeah. It's like,
I should say, like, I think the scene would justify the film's existence, but I also really loved the rest of it too. So otherwise it wouldn't bounce up to being a favorite.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, I can't heart the film on Letterboxd, but I still enjoyed my time with the film and I think it's doing good stuff. So
nice.
Yeah. That's a good choice. It didn't get me all the way there. So for the first highlight for me that I want to highlight is a little film called Levitating, which is a Indonesian film that is about basically a young boy who is trying to become a spirit channeler. Which is somebody who basically these people get together and they play music and they get a bunch of people together to participate in like group. Basically, people get together as a group and get possessed by a different spirit. And while you're possessed by the spirit, your outward appearance is sort of mimicking the characteristics of that spirit. But in the in-world, you're like experiencing bliss and different stuff. But the person who's channeling that spirit, if they don't concentrate enough, other thoughts and feelings and stuff can get into that possession and like things can go wrong. And it's about this boy who lots of stuff going on in his life. There's a girl he's into and he just gets distracted but he really wants to become the spirit channeler. It's just about him trying to figure out how to do it. But it's just a wildly inventive story. There's really, really fun stuff that's happening during the spirit channeling. The opening scene, which is your first introduction to the spirit channeling event thing, like there's flute things, there's like electric guitar, there's like all sorts of different music, and people are being channeled by these spirits, and like it kind of almost becomes like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where like if he thinks about food, like people in the spirit world are being hit by like hot dogs and like weird stuff. It's like, it's just so fun and inventive that like I just had an amazing time where I was like, this is so fun. And just watching this character try to figure out what spirit he can try to inhabit and use to channel and possess people with, and him going through his adventure. I loved whatever it was this film was doing. I think it's really, really fun. I hope people get to watch this thing. It was a really fun ride for me.
Man, interesting. I feel bad. I didn't let that movie make my shortlist, and I can't even remember why I didn't watch it. I think I was doing something as superficial, just like scrolling through the cover images and being like, which one is calling to me? And for some reason, that one, I guess it just looked lighthearted in a way that I didn't know if I was like vibing with at the time. But It sounds interesting.
It's really fun. I didn't even bother looking to see like what critics thought of it. I was just like, this is too fun for me.
Nice. All right. The next one I'll highlight is a movie called Lady. This is a Nigerian film. It's about this woman named Lady, played by Jessica Gabriel's Uja. I'm sure I'm just in advance, all non-American names, just assume I am butchering the hell out of it, but I'm really trying my best. But anyway, that Lady is a cab driver in Lagos, and she's kind of very independent, right? She's like a fiercely independent woman, but like many people living in Lagos, living under capitalism, she needs money and she wants to break free. She wants to find some way of upwards mobility so she can head to, in her case, Freetown, which is kind of this dream of an escape for her. And in order to make money, when she reconnects with a friend of hers who's a sex worker, she agrees to start driving them around at night. And this movie, in terms of being like a complete filmic vision, this was probably as good as anything I saw at the festival for me. Like it was vibrantly made. Like it had a lot of high energy. It had a lot of interesting, like magical realism, a lot of just cool editing choices. It always propelled forward for me. I thought it was like socially resonant. It does what I love about Sundance, especially world cinema films, where it tells me something about the politics or culture of a place and like what are they wrestling with and how are they feeling. In this case, it's really about like protests of people who are tired of being kind of mistreated or having nowhere to go, and wanting to have some autonomy. That this really tapped into that. I think it's like well like acted. I think everyone in it is really great, and it was just like dark and thrilling and interesting. And it's funny because it's one of those movies that I look back a day after watching it and I felt like I couldn't really describe to Joanna what it was that I loved about it. But when Lady ended, I was like, that is probably the best or one of the best things I'm going to see at this festival. So I was really here for Lady. I think it's just a super interesting, darkly funny, but also heavy, but also magical. It just has everything. So I was really quite taken with this movie.
I don't know if I feel the darkly funny aspect of it. It felt it felt not funny, but it might have been the things I sandwiched between it put me in a tonal space to not be.
Yeah, maybe funny is the wrong word. Something about the editing and pace and music, it felt irreverent. Like it was dealing with heavy themes in a way that had high energy.
Yeah. Because I definitely didn't end that film in a funny mood.
No, for sure.
It's a pretty devastating film, I feel.
Yeah. It certainly. I should revise that. It's tackling heavy materials with a playfulness in terms of how it's shot and how it tells the story and how it gives you information.
Yeah. It definitely starts in what you feel like is going to be a more playful, story. Like you're watching a character that you think is going to go on a more a less devastating journey.
Yeah.
and it's definitely not a celebration that you get from this. But yeah, it's definitely an intense, powerful story. I definitely felt the same way. If I had to be like, hey, what did you think about that film? I would be like, it was a lot, and I don't know what to think about it. This is a film that like you would want to sit with for a while and not immediately run into your next film. So
yeah, not immediately watch Extra Geography afterwards.
Definitely not. All right. My next film is Extra. I'm not kidding. Yeah. So let's see. What do I want to hit next? Yeah, I will go on to the next thing I want to hit is a little film called Run Amok. Yeah, I'll go with that one. So Run Amok is actually a comedy, but it does genuinely deal with a dark subject matter. It is basically the story of a young girl. She is in a school that is not celebrating. It is about to put on a commemoration, I guess, for the 10-year anniversary of a shooting that took place at the school, where the lead character lost her mother as one of the teachers who died in that shooting. And this girl is trying to work on an art project that will kind of help her find catharsis, to help her deal with what happened. And she decides to put on a musical that'll help her, kind of deal with the trauma and help her understand what took place. And this, I thought, was just a, a beautiful story of, just a young person trying to understand what took place and understand why it could have taken place and try kind of just get a better understanding of what that did to the people around her and what that did to her school. She is currently going to school in a place where all of the teachers carry little orange guns that shoot rubber bullets. The PTA has been replaced with the PTAA, which is the Parent Teacher Arms Association. And it's just her trying to, figure out how to deal with stuff. I thought it was a very interesting story. The ending, honestly, a little weird. Not my favorite way to end the story, especially given how beautiful the ending is starting to be before it does what it does do. But I thought it was a very inventive way to tackle this subject matter. And the little mini journeys that this character goes on with the pieces of information that she learns, what it shows about this school. I just thought it was very inventive. This is no mass, but taking that subject matter and distilling it down to like a young person's kind of vantage point and having that character in the quirky manner it does try to understand things, I thought was like an interesting way to tackle it. So I really like this film.
Yeah, interesting. That is another one that fell off my list kind of at the last minute. But I heard you're not the only person that I've heard say good things about it. So I do kind of wish I'd managed to squeeze it back on my list. Okay, I guess I'm going to keep in similar theme, of heavy subject matter being presented in an energetic, some would argue, lighthearted way. And I'm going to go with the movie called Burn. Burn by Makoto Nagahisa. This movie is about a runaway teenage girl who is basically fleeing a abusive religious household, and she heads out to the red light district of Shinjuku, where she finds basically it's like the island of misfit toys for her. It's like there's all of these other runaways, kids that are living in the street, they're misfits or outcasts or hustlers, and they kind of form a sort of found family of sorts, and this movie is about her navigating that new life in Tokyo. And it deals with very, very heavy, dark subject matter, and it does it with a very, I'm going to say, playful punk rock in your face aesthetic that I think is going to be very polarizing. But for me, and I think this is a trend for a lot of movies that really struck me this year, it had like an energy and it felt like such a singular artistic voice that I was just totally vibing with what this movie was doing. It's like, it is so just loud and energetic and weird. It has like this wacky crew of characters. It has all these different like phases of her journey that are presented with scrawled, like, not diary entries. It's made to look like something that you would kind of stencil on your Converse while you're in class. You know, like it feels very much like a teenage dream paired with, I cannot stress this enough, intensely heavy, difficult to watch material about, you know, the abuse or otherwise, you know, predation of young people. And it's messy, right? This is next chord, next being, you know, the category that I would describe as being more of like rough, semi-experimental, you know, artists who want to kind of play with a more colorful sandbox. And that means there are things that don't totally work about this movie. I would say the director is very in love with Gaussian splats and point clouds. You know, in a way that didn't totally work, but I don't know. I thought it was just a fucking rush. And like this, for me, is the kind of thing I come to Sundance for, is just to see a director go for it and kind of announce their voice. And for me, I thought this movie was a thrill. So I was pretty taken with Burn. Yeah.
Stephen, this movie is in my lowlights category. The film was just a bridge too far for me. I think for me, this film is the definition of out of the frying pan and into the fire. Like it was just too, there was no, the character runs away from a bad situation and nothing ever good comes from the running away. And yeah. I didn't want to sit for 103 minutes through all of that. And I kept waiting for the fun that you described. And there was never any fun for me. It was
You didn't think singing about chihuahuas was fun?
It wasn't fun enough.
Okay.
Like I didn't like I was excited to watch this film, and usually it's like this is essentially what if like the Lost Boys escaped to like a really fucked up Neverland.
Right.
Except for like, I don't get why any of the kids are happy in the fucked up Neverland, right? It's like, what if there's only one Lost Boy and all the other Lost Boys are like pirates and they're bad and scary? And like, you know, like they're all crocodiles, you know?
I don't know if I agree with that. I think they're a sympathetic character. No one is fleshed out fully, but there are certainly characters that are hurt rather than hurting other people.
But I don't think anybody's genuinely, I don't think anybody is happy. I think they're all fucked up and delusional. Yep. And any sense of happiness is actually, I don't think anybody should be trying to recruit people to join their forces. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's all sadness. You know what I mean? Like, sure. I didn't feel good. Not that the point of the film is to feel good. I just right. was kind of like, I'm not enjoying this at all. And I didn't feel like I gained anything by watching it. And I didn't feel like I learned anything by watching it, except that you shouldn't use Gaussian splatting as a filmic technique at all.
Well, I will say that the one thing that was rattling in my head is I thought I was going to watch a coming of age drama, and instead it's like a coming of rage drama, and I enjoyed that, however nihilistic it might feel.
Yeah. Also, are dildos that flammable?
Only one way to find out.
Oh, sorry, I guess it was a vibrator. My mistake. I guess those are Samsung vibrators.
You're going to have to watch it again. It's a good joke.
All right. I guess I'm out.
Go for it.
All right. Should we go on to how to divorce during a war?
Sure.
All right. I think this is a film that I think we were both excited just based on the title alone. How to divorce during a war. Seems like a great premise for a film. Little did we know, Stephen, that we were probably wildly off base by what we thought this film was about. I was so queued up with the joke in my head starting this film. I was so ready to throw out the joke, the worst person in the world. Because I thought I knew what this movie was going to be about, but it turns out that this movie is the Lithuanian Eddington.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And a film that I, obviously, because it's the highlight, that this is like everything Eddington was trying to do, but like working for me. Basically, you know, this film starts with somebody saying they want a divorce, but this is not actually a story about two people getting a divorce during a war. It's a story about societies of people being next door to wars and atrocities taking place and being, hey, we're over here. That's not us. We're fine. We're going about our business. Some people saying like, I hate that. This is really, really bad. What am I going to do about it? Probably nothing. I'm going to continue making my TikTok videos and do all my stuff. I'm going to, you know, let people into my house, but then complain about them being in my house. And it's just, I just thought this was an incredibly compelling film that handles the subject matter really, really well, while still kind of also having a bunch of random other things to say in the middle of the film. All the characters I found really, really interesting. And I thought that this film was really, really fun. And like me realizing what the film is actually about, like 5 minutes into the film going like, oh, you fucking bastard. Like, it was a pretty great experience watching it.
Wow. You clued into it faster than me. Much like Eddington, I very much liked this movie. It's interesting because I was thinking that this would be a kind of depressing movie about divorce, you know, and isolation set against the backdrop of war. And this movie is drawing parallels, you know, between war and divorce. But instead of being like, look at how heavy and sad and hard this is, this movie is kind of teasing us about our tendency to retreat back to inertia, right? The pull of just trying to go back to normal, right? Like, coexisting with awkward things and having this energy of wanting to make a change, and then how awkward it is to actually make a change when everything in you just wants like your comfortable existence. And I thought this is a description that I think you will actually agree with this time around. I thought this was like a very darkly funny, you know,
100%.
movie, right? Very much. And it's about, that push and pull of like performing big ideas, big changes, right? This whole movie is the equivalent of like getting like bangs. Like it's the new change that is going to be like, wow, new year, new me. And then no matter how big the thing you're up against, like, you know, a divorce after years of feeling miserable, or an unjust war, and you finally want to make a statement, your day-to-day life, you just are like, fuck, I don't have the energy to keep being against something, you know? And I thought it was just very, very, very clever and funny and thought-provoking. And I really enjoyed this movie. I also like the window into the Eastern European version of the family that watches Fox News, you know, all the time. Like the parents who watch Russian propaganda and insist that they're not actually falling for the propaganda, but that slowly are like, no, I think you're fucking falling for it.
But that's also, his parents were actually Ukrainian, right?
I believe so. Yeah. He at least seemed to... I don't speak Ukrainian, but it seemed to me that he spoke Ukrainian from how he kind of translates characters for the other Russian speakers in his life. Yeah,
because at least that was the assumption I was making. But they were pro-Russian just because of the work that you could get over there. But then they also listened to like the Russian Fox News program. Yeah, it was. Everything it was doing was so great. And it's funny too, because there's like a little bit of a thing where it's like we're watching this film that's not made in the US, so it's like we're watching the film that's talking about this with distance because we're watching it over here. So it's like it's kind of doing to us the thing that it's doing to the characters, and it's like, oh my god. So it's
very, very, very solid movie. Okay, next, I think if I had to pick one literal favorite from the whole Sundance slate, it would be If I Go, Will They Miss Me? This is a movie directed by Walter Thompson Hernandez. And it's coming of age is kind of right. Like, it's following a 12-year-old boy named Ant, who's living in, I think, the Watts neighborhood of LA. It's following him and his dad, who has been in and out of prison, so not always a presence in his life. And I would say it's kind of equally split between the two of their perspectives, which is why I think coming of age is maybe not quite the right way to think about it. But
came of age?
Yeah, exactly. But Ant is a dreamer. Like, he's been learning about Greek mythology in school, and so much of his view of his dad is framed around that, right? His dad is Odysseus returning after a long time away, but his dad is also Poseidon. He's a god, and his uncle is Zeus, and he keeps seeing things in terms of the unbelievable power and amazingness of his father, jut up against his dad, who is struggling with re-entry. He's been in and out of prison. He doesn't have his shit together. He doesn't really know how to stay home and just be a father. He makes many mistakes throughout this movie. He's definitely not painted in a perfect light. And this movie is just, the word I want to use is just lyrical. This movie is just, there is like a beautiful score playing the whole time. This movie is just so empathetic in its depiction of childhood, in its depiction of parents who are trying and failing in the kind of cycle that keeps people stuck, in believing that you have nowhere to go and your dreams can't go anywhere, and the way that cycle might repeat onto your kids, and the desire to have kids have a better life than you. It is so beautifully done. Like, this is the movie that really got the waterworks going for me. In multiple places. There's a scene towards the end that I won't spoil, but involving the dad walking into a house all excited. And from that point on through the end of the movie, I was basically constantly crying. Whatever it was doing, it just had my number. I thought this was it reminded me of Barry Jenkins. It felt like just so beautiful and tender. And when I talk about Sundance movies, this is kind of the other category that I'm looking for, is just like, tell a story, tell it with all of your heart, and move me. And this movie just really moved me. I think it's just really, really, really beautifully done.
Yeah, I think this was one of my favorite films as well, without it even perfectly all gelling to me. Like, this film is doing a lot, but there's so much like symbolism and things and visual things that it's doing that it is a vibe and a feeling that you get, that you feel emotional whether or not you fully understand all the different visual symbolism and stuff that it's grabbing from different things. And like, there's lots of things that you just get the vibe of, the escape of needing to get out of a place, like the obsession with planes, and like can I just leave and go away from a place, or am I stuck in this one complex that I live in? And some people might feel that feeling these illusions about your father through what you're learning in school might be too on the nose, but it still is such a beautiful analogy of like a child learning about these fantastical things for the first time, and that's his only way to understand the journeys that his father has been on. And a young child is kind of supposed to worship his father in that way, and him just applying those stories to that is just like a beautiful thing. And there's just so many times when it's like this film does that thing where you have a person just like locked off staring into the camera, and you feel like everything about that person's life in them staring into the camera, in a way where it's like, this isn't the type of film that would always work for me. And like I said, there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't, like, there's scenes of kids like running weapon style in this film.
I thought of weapons a lot,
where I'm like, I don't know if this jives with me.
Oh man,
100%
it all
right
worked
now.
for me. Even when I didn't totally know why it was happening. I love a movie that goes for it. That just like there's a motif of airplane noises, like the sound of an airplane flying overhead during certain arguments, kind of drowning it out. And at the time it was playing, it's not like I immediately felt, oh, I know what that is symbolizing. But it just it felt beautiful to me even before I could look back later and kind of see the bigger meaning behind it. It's just so just like confidently made.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like even the things that I would otherwise feel are like holes in the narrative or not a complete thought feel like purposefully there in a way where it's like it's asking me to feel it instead of understand it. And I think it is a, fully accomplished. It is asking me to meet it where it is in a way that makes me experience it and not just like need to fully understand what I'm grasping. It's like I literally emotionally feel it instead of fully comprehend everything it's trying to do. And I think it's beautiful for what it's doing.
Yeah.
How many more of these? How many have we done, Stephen? How many more are we going to go before
we've done 7. 7? I think we can make it 10, but it's up to you.
10 happies or just 10 total?
Good question.
I'll do one more that I know we can both talk about. You want to talk about the Incomer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I do think we'll also have to cover Josephine though, because it won a bunch of shit.
Actually, yeah. Let's talk about Josephine. And then, so Josephine is a film that is about a young girl who witnesses a sexual assault in Golden Gate Park, and is the story of kind of how she, is dealing with what she saw and how her family sort of grapples with what she saw and how they kind of deal with the impending trial because her father chases away the suspect, the assaulter, and kind of how this family deals with what took place and how that is, potentially going to affect this child as they grow up and eventually make the film that we're watching. I thought this was a really fantastic film. I think, I don't have children, but like the way this film deals with how the parents talk to the child about what they experienced, what they saw, and how they deal with just trying to communicate to them what goes on in the world and how they are going to go through life and see and experience things, I thought was just a really, really compelling look. I think that this film is, I interpret this film as kind of I think this is an angry film, and I think the filmmaker is speaking in her mother's voice to her childhood self, saying the things that maybe her mother never said to her, but she is speaking as an adult version of herself to her childhood self, saying things that maybe she never heard or maybe she wants to say to herself now. That's just my kind of...
Yeah. I got the same vibe.
Yeah, so I think that this is a really interesting, because I would be shocked if her mother said those things to her as a child, but I just found that it was a really compelling film. I know we have kind of talked off air a little bit about some of the stuff this film is doing later with the court case and stuff like that, that we don't have to talk about here. But I was kind of blown away by just kind of the depiction this film does about the parents in the story and the young girl, and kind of just all the conversations this film is willing to have in a way that, I was kind of blown away by the presentation here.
Yeah. I thought it was beautiful. It wasn't quite one of my favorites of the festival. I feel like it was very heavy, and there was kind of an extended section of the middle where it felt to me like it was kind of living in that heaviness, or the idea of a kid not knowing how to process without maybe knowing what it wanted to do with it. But the beginning and the immediate aftermath of that, and then the last 30 minutes of the movie combined, both I thought were amazing. Yeah. I think it really, as a statement, it just says a lot, and it lingers for you. There's a line that a kid says, Josephine says in the courtroom, that I thought was just such a perfect kind of. There is movie after that, but that line felt to me like the note the movie wanted to leave you with, basically. Yeah. And I thought that was great. I will pause and make a little sanity check or nitpick that feels not great to do for such a kind of important and heavy movie. But there's a scene where Josephine runs away, and the geography of that scene, in my mind, is the most bonkers thing in San Francisco I've ever seen.
You mean from her mother's car?
Yeah. From her mother's car to Golden Gate Park, and then I believe to an overpass in Potrero Hill. Anyway, small movies take liberties all the time. Not important, but just as a local, I did appreciate too how this movie really highlights a bunch of interesting parts of the city that you don't often see on screen. But I will admit that took me out of it. But yeah, I think the core idea of this movie is really beautiful, and like it just ends on a note that I found deeply memorable.
Steven, that was a montage, and she wandered around the city all day long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I do have a genuine question is, because this film was obviously filmed, semi-recently. How much digital effects were used to remove all the Waymos from all the establishing shots?
That's a good question. I did not think of that. My non-funny thought or question about like how this movie was made is the work they had to do to tell this story with an actual child actor and make sure that child wasn't exposed to anything. I think they did it very well. I did see the seams a few times, like choices of perspective that they made, maybe not because it's the best way to tell the story, but because it's like an obvious moral limitation that they had to have. But I was thinking about that a lot, basically, like how do you do this story to the fullest while also being ethical and not doing the thing to a child that your whole movie is about wanting to avoid doing.
Yeah, I felt that as well in the initial interview scene.
But anyway, lovely movie. Are we wanting to do a few more highlights, or do we want to jump to lowlights now?
We can. I probably only have one unfortunate low light because I already literally burned one. So
okay. Do you have another highlight? Because we can make it an even 10 total highlights and then just 2 lowlights if we want.
Okay. Yeah. We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I will close on a documentary, which honestly, all the documentaries I watched, I at least quite enjoyed this year. I really tried to save it for ones that were getting quite a bit of praise. But the movie that stands out for me the most is a film called American Doctor. This is a documentary about 3 doctors who live in America, who decide to go to Gaza. Like they've been to Gaza a few times to try to work in the hospital there. And it is basically following them from, I believe, end of 2024 to early 2025. They basically enter during a ceasefire, and it goes backwards to show their previous experiences at that hospital, and then just kind of follows the work they do there and the advocacy work that they do back in America to try to tell people that they need to be aware of some of the atrocities that are happening over there, specifically Israel targeting hospitals and making it very, very difficult to treat people who have already been bombed. And this movie is just like, you want to talk about heavy documentaries that are very much like a moral call to action. This is the most that this year by far. It is like extremely hard to watch, and it is intentionally hard to watch as a political statement. Like this movie opens with one of the doctors, the Jewish doctor, who, because he's Jewish especially, he feels maybe most empowered to be very vocally against the genocide, because he unlike other people, he feels like he can kind of do that without running the risk of being seen as anti-Semitic. And he is showing the documentary filmmaker photos of dead children, basically, like kids who had been brought in an ambulance and didn't survive the trip over. And she wants to blur it out and says, like, I'll look, but I'm blurring this out. And he says, no, don't blur it out. That's the point. Like, people have to see this. And the desire to blur it out because you think it's going to be more helpful is part of the problem. And I think this movie is just like a super intense political statement. And I just thought it was very, very... it's powerful. And this is a movie that just, it goes out on just the most like intense call to action I've seen in a while. So not a lighthearted recommendation, but I definitely think if there's one documentary that you should catch this year, then American Doctor is probably the most important of them.
Nice. Steven's gonna throw out American Doctor right after he knows that I was gonna throw out The Incomer right before.
I have to admit, I wasn't thinking about that until I saw your face halfway through me describing American Doctor. But it's fine. We need lightheartedness too.
All right. So The Incomer is the story of two siblings that are living on a little Scottish island, and they just been living on this island alone for like 30 years, minding their own business, catching gulls, and eating them, and minding their own business. When the Scottish Land Authority, whatever they're called, decides to send Donald Gleeson over to the island to tell them they need to vacate because of some, whatever manifest destiny bullshit.
Yep.
And they have been taught since a very young age to allow no incomers to come take their land, have to figure out what the hell's up with this invading force that is this one man, and decide to figure out what his deal is, why he's trying to come take their land, and figure out how to deal with him. And the incomer has to figure out who these people are, why they don't want to leave, and figure out how to deal with them and potentially get them to leave this land, because that's his job as a member of the Land Authority of Scotland. And hilarity ensues. Lots of crazy hijinks and fun antics. This is an incredibly wild and fun film. Just an amazing time had for all. It's just a joyous film. Of any of the films at the festival, I think this was the most just pure fun and energy
100%.
and joyous time. So it is nice, all joking aside, it is nice to just have this on the list, just to tell people that, like, when you see a trailer for this eventually, if you watch the trailer and you're like, that seems goofy AF, it is, but it is worth the watch, and it is worth your time saying, hope you enjoy it. Please watch it.
Yeah, this movie was delightful. And it was like, I was expecting a kind of quirky comedy, again, just judging by the one cover image, which is how I judge most movies that I was selecting. But it was so much more out there in a wonderful way that briefly at the beginning, I was afraid I was going to get another Bubble and Squeak from last year, like a movie that's just like intentionally strange and that's all it has going for it. But this movie is like strange and heartwarming and laugh out loud funny. There are two recurring bits that had me like LOLing on the couch in headphones while Joanna sat next to me. One of them involving Lord of the Rings and the other involving jugs of urine. That I just...
Both those bits are so
both
good.
of them, I could have called the joke ahead of time. Like, I kind of knew where it was headed, but it was so delightful to see it head exactly where I wanted it to. Yeah, this movie is great. I love seeing Donald Gleeson get to do just like seriously goofball comedic performances, and I had a blast with this movie. It was definitely the most fun of anything that I watched.
Yeah. All right, one low light each. Mm-hmm. Steven, what do you got?
Okay, I'm gonna start. There's a couple that I could pick, but rather than a movie that I have criticisms of, I'm going to have a movie that I just like, from the moment I hit play, I was like, oh no, I am not on board for whatever this is, and my brain can't handle it. And that is Z by Kogonada.
We got the same one.
Oh shit. Okay, great. Well, if you want to take Z, I can give you my other low light, which is going to be much less scathing.
Is your other one Extra Geography?
No, it's not.
Okay. Then you can do your other one.
Okay, cool. So we'll hold off on Z for a second.
Okay.
No, you talk about Z with me now. We'll make it yours, and then I'll close with mine. So you start off with Z. Why was it a low light for you?
All right. So as I talked about earlier, because I think for the most part I liked everything that I watched at least a little bit, right? Everything had at least some bar of like, yeah, that was pretty good. It was doing stuff that was interesting. It had genuine, real stuff to say about life. It had real, genuine points about something. It was trying to do something. It nailed. There was at least one scene where I was like, yeah, I know why you wanted to make this movie for this scene. I like this, or it had an ending where I went, fuck, I felt something, like most films had that. Yeah. Z, I was excited for, big fan of After Yang, liked Columbus. I was ready for this. Z, give me a thing. A woman's having flashes of her future self and she meets a stranger that maybe is going to change her life. Give it to me. I'm ready for Z. Steven, what is the one thing I care about in films? Starts with a W.
World building.
Does this film build worlds?
No. Or if it does, I am too stupid.
Steven, I rewound this film to replay every scene that had any exposition so I could re-listen to make sure that I wasn't just too tired to get what this film was doing. And then I said, no, this makes no sense. And then this is the one film that I listened to the Q&A for because I wanted to validate my assumptions about how this film was made. And my assumptions were correct. They first started filming, and then they started writing, and then they refilmed, and then they started writing again, and then they refilmed, and then they started writing again, and then they made a movie. Good for them. I appreciate the act of what they did. I don't appreciate the movie they made. I am sorry. End of rant.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I was terrified when I brought up Z. You were going to tell me how it's like, no, you don't get it. It's like Primer. There's like this amazing thing that it's doing. Because I guess I was tired, right? It wasn't my first day of the festival, but this was my first movie of the day with a cup of coffee, which is usually when I'm like the most patient, the most able to follow along and get on a movie's wavelength. That's why I usually save like subtitled movies or like long movies or things like that for the morning. Within the first 5 minutes, I was just like, I don't know. I don't like even the description, a woman, she's having flashbacks to her future self, maybe. Like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how this movie is doing that. I don't really know what world it's queuing up or how we're meant to understand that world more as it goes along. It really, to me, just felt like a handful of actors making shit up, and it being an excuse for Kogonada to frame shots and edit them in a way that he liked, not telling any kind of story. And you know me, I am not Mr. like the plot needs to be airtight. I am fine with an impressionistic thing that is about a vibe or a feeling. I don't even know what feelings this movie was about. It just felt so alien to me. And it was like interesting, right? Like I still didn't hate it only because I was like, you're doing a thing, I guess.
Yeah. But
I don't know what any of it is.
Yeah. Here's me watching this. I don't want to spoil this movie. Mm-hmm. If that's even something you can do. So I'm just going to tell you something I was thinking halfway through and then not resolve the thought. Halfway through this movie, I was like, I sure hope they're going to explain something when they get to the lab in the morning.
Yeah. I don't. I can't. I want to love Haley Lou Richardson, but her character also, like, the moment I met her, I was like, I'm not in for whatever this is.
Yeah. I will say this, though. The last time a character says, "What do you see?" I maybe felt a little tiny bit of something.
Little bit, yeah. Little. That felt like the line that the movie was kind of built around or reverse engineered to make meaningful. But even then, I don't know why I felt.
Yeah.
Inexplicable movie.
Yeah, I was like, I feel something that's not anger, but now I feel angry again that you made me feel something that's not anger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is by far the most like vehemently opinionated I feel about a low light.
Yeah. And again, that's just the gulf between what I expected and what I got. It's not that like, I don't genuinely hate the movie. It's just that I was really excited for what Kogonada was going to bring. And it turned out that he just wanted a free trip to make this movie.
Seems like it. Okay, I'm going to close out on a movie that, again, like, I didn't hate. It was doing something. I intellectually get it. I just wasn't totally vibing with it. And that is Union County. This is a movie starring Will Poulter. That is a portrait of, like, I'm pivoting into serious territory again.
Both movies are eyebrows, people.
Yeah. Both movies are eyebrows, people. This is a portrait of recovery in Ohio amidst the opioid epidemic. So Will Poulter plays this character, Cody, who is basically in a mandatory recovery program. And it's kind of just a slice of life look at his attempts, the process of recovery. And this movie, it seemed true to life to me. You know, it definitely had the ring of having a lot of non-professional actors playing themselves, especially in scenes at the recovery center or the courthouse or anywhere where people are kind of working through the process. And it does depict the kind of very slow, aimless feeling of a person who is an addict, who's kind of living in a place where there doesn't feel like there's any hope, any place that they can go, any promise to look forward to. And I think it does kind of capture this gravitational pull towards the craving, as maybe the only moment of excitement in this whole movie happens when characters are shooting up, basically. And intellectually, I think that is interesting. That conveys some kind of thought or idea about what addiction to opioids might feel like. But even at 27 minutes, or 97 minutes, that is just too slow for me. There was just too little happening, at least for me watching this as my last movie of the night in a day where I watched 7 things. I was just like, I need you to do something else. Either tell this story in a more interesting way or find another story to tell alongside of it. Like, show me something that gives me more of a tapestry, because this was just, it was too much glacially paced, somber vibes. And I think I can justify why it did that. I can write that review if I want to, of why it makes sense to do it this way and why it's important. But I just couldn't. I couldn't totally get on the wavelength.
Yeah, I think the problem with a film like this is, at least the impression I got, is that they're surrounding Will Poulter with actual people in this program.
Yeah.
And when they're telling their real story, and then I'm Will Poulter pretending to be addicted to this stuff, it just inherently feels wrong.
Right.
To be sitting in a group with people telling their truths, and then you being Will Poulter, and they're like, we'll just have him grow out his stubble and not cut his hair, and then pretend like he's addicted to drugs. And then it something just feels off and false about it. And it's like, it didn't like, I literally, I've said multiple times tonight that there's so many films that have all these moments that feel true.
Yeah.
And then this film is like surrounding this actor with truth and having him spit falsities, and it didn't rise to the level of a bunch of the other films for me either.
Yeah, it's fair, and the truth in, like, I loved Smashed years ago, like the truth of, like, scenes in group therapy or social workers who are on the phone and talking and sharing, like, those were very moving. Like, that's why I didn't dislike this movie. I think I gave it like 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Like, it was okay. It's just like, this could have been the kind of thing that I would fucking love. And if it had just leaned more into the truth and less into, like, what I would say is the least interesting part of it, I think it could have been just much more than it is.
Yeah. Well, I think we did it, Stephen.
We did it, yeah.
We done did it. All right. Well, we're excited for the rest of the year film. You want to wrap this up, Stephen?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. If people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com. Or probably by the time this drops, there will be some write-up on Decoding Everything about Sundance, so you can check it out there too.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Christopher IRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. Yeah, that's it for this week. We are done. We'll be back next week with a review of something, so stay tuned. We will see you soon.
Yep.
Later.
Bye.